Okay, welcome to the Atomic Masculinity Podcast. I'm Coach Chris Hogan coming at you from the great state of Texas, and I have today with me Deuce Hogan and Zeke Hogan. And today we're going to be discussing a problem with men and women. I'm going to start today with a letter. I could read you thousands of letters and complaints written every week by people all over the country. Listen to this. I'm 27. My boyfriend is 30. He still lives with his parents and works at a very low paying job. He seems content with the situation and has no motivation to improve his life or become independent, other than moving in with me eventually. He's definitely not a mooch, or so she says, but it bothers me that he doesn't want to be independent or work hard to achieve something. I never thought of myself as a traditionalist, but the thought of supporting a grown man is a huge turnoff. How can I bring this without becoming a huge demasculizing B word? That's her wording. That's one letter. Listen to this one. It's even shorter. Hello. My partner has no financial ambition in life. I, however, have a huge career ambition and I hunger to see the world. He's working in a part-time low-wage job, living with his parents, and that's what he chooses. As much as I love him, I struggle with the thought of having a financially dependent partner. Can this work? Will he eventually change? Am I asking too much? You guys getting the drift here? You kind of see where we're going? Here's the last one. Then I'll get your thoughts on this. My current boyfriend's a nice guy, and I love him, but he's also unambitious. I'm enrolled in grad school, and I'm working very hard to create a successful future for myself. He has a high school degree. He's 22 years old. He's spent the last 4 years working a job that doesn't pay well, and worse, there's not a lot of upside. He also has no intention of ever going to college. He's obsessed with martial arts and endeavors to open his own martial arts school someday. He doesn't have the money, so I'm not sure how he intends to do this. He's been bringing up the subject of marriage lately. But when I imagine us 5 years together, I can picture myself being the only breadwinner. He wants me to be by his side to help him open his martial arts school, but all I can imagine is working myself hard to provide money for him to go practice karate all day. He seems, well, immature, I suppose. Is it unreasonable for me to want to break up with him based on the fact he'll probably never be able to provide any financial support? Okay, so why are we getting these letters? What has happened in our society that has caused this? Because let me tell you, this is a relatively new phenomenon. So what's your initial thoughts?
Well, I think that the root of this comes from the cultural breakdown of roles. So I think it comes from two sides, the breakdown of women's role and the breakdown of men's role and how they're viewed. For example, my role as a man, my role in masculinity is to provide and protect, right? And that can only be done if I have a work ethic and if I have a vision.
Well, according to who? Because I think there's
God.
a lot of young ladies who would resent the fact that you're saying, as a man, it's my role to provide. I think you're offending 40% of Americans, not more. What do you say to that?
And that comes from the breakdown of the feminine role, which is a supporting role. So what I will say about those letters you read, for example, the guy wanting to start his own karate dojo, you can see that she has no faith in his dream. She has no faith in his dream. And she believes that the route to success is pulling herself up by her bootstraps and going to graduate school and making a life for herself. And that's a breakdown of both roles. So where the man's role is breaking down is he has not given her evidence to have faith in him. He works a part-time job and lives with his parents. Now, if he talked to her passionately about starting his dojo and worked 40 hours a week or 50 or 60 or 70 hours a week, nose on the grindstone, trying to make something happen, then she's going to go, this guy's serious. He's going to create whatever. It's a small business. He's going to create a business and he's going to make something of himself. And she gets the proof, right? And similarly, he gets the support from her when he mentions marriage, and she goes, "Absolutely, I'm here along for the ride. I can't wait to see what you do." And it's like jet fuel for him. It fuels him to go and do more and work harder. But it's her belief that she needs to make a life for herself, and it's his belief that, well, I don't know what his belief. It's probably his laziness, I guess, that keeps him from taking the action he's supposed to be taking.
Well, but that thing that keeps him from taking the action he ought to be taking is at an epidemic rate in America compared to where it's ever been. And that's the question I ask is why? I agree with what you're saying, but why? Why are there so many? What have we done as a society that has created so many men who lack ambition?
Comfort. I mean, we live in an age of instant gratification and comfort. You want to abandon your role as an enterprising, hardworking man when you don't have to be enterprising and hardworking to get all the things that you want. So that's why. I mean, desire comes from a place of, I have to work so that I can, it's means to an end. Work is means to an end. But now you've eliminated the means.
Well, work doesn't always have to originate as a means to an end, because I think work is a gift given by God to mankind to serve fellow man. Work is dignified and gives you purpose. It doesn't necessarily, it's not just for an ends, but
That's true. But there are a lot of men who 50 years ago would have worked very hard to provide for themselves
yeah,
a house and a wife and enough food for just the purposes of a house and a wife and food.
yeah, yeah,
Can I ask a question?
sure. You usually do.
Do y'all feel at all like one of the things that's changed over, like, let's say the last 50 to 100 years is the clarity between simply what's wrong and right or what's good and bad? Because I think what was a common idea or a common belief about this is just the right thing to do, or this is just what you're supposed to do. Part of that being, well, I'm supposed to provide, I'm supposed to get married, I'm supposed to have good kids, I'm supposed to raise these kids and be a hands-on dad. I think that there was a general belief about what you were supposed to do or this is the right thing to do. And not only have gender roles been distorted, but also what's wrong and right or what is quote unquote normal has been distorted. Do you agree with that? Do you think that's part of the issue?
I think that is the core problem is the country was built on Judeo-Christian ethics, and not only Judeo-Christian ethics, but a sense of biblical order and creation order. So the family is the indispensable building block of civilization. And then once you do not teach coming generations those bedrock principles, then they float away from those. So there's no question about that. And I think also it combines with what Zeke said, affluency plus secularism leads to catastrophe.
Say that again.
Affluence plus secularism leads to catastrophe. People become bored. People are trying to look for meaning. And so if you do not have a transcendent cause that orders your life like a biblical worldview, you go quickly the wrong direction. And so I just think it's interesting because we've raised a whole generation of guys. I mean, this is the least married generation in the history of America, is guys that are about your age, dude. Anywhere from 18 to 30, they're the least married and they're pushing marriage away. By the way, I heard a stat the other day that women are actually not wanting to get married more often than guys. A lot of guys are coming around to the fact that, hey, if I don't have somebody to protect, provide for, and live life with and build a family with, this is going to be very empty if all I do is make a bunch of money. But young ladies are pushing marriage off at an unbelievable rate. So I think we have a problem in the country right now.
Deuce, to kind of piggyback off what you were saying earlier about this idea of like, that's what you should do, right? You should get married and you should work hard and you should have a family. I think that what's been chipped away at little by little by little has been just the general conscience of the nation, like the conviction. So people aren't convicted when they're lazy anymore. Now, you used to feel, well, generally, men used to feel bad or feel embarrassed when they worked a part time job and lived with their parents and they're 30 years old. That's,
Yep. That was societal, though. That was societal pressure.
yeah, well, it was societal, but also there's like an internal part of that man who looks around and sees all the people his age not doing that. And he knows, oh, I think there's something wrong. And then he talks to his parents and they say, hey, you should do that. And he believes that's what he should be doing. His priorities. And so it galvanizes him into going and taking action. Versus now, we can see it a lot. We can see it in Romans chapter 1 when Paul talks about by their unrighteousness, they suppress the truth. Right. And so he talks about how God's attributes and his characters are plain for people to see. But because we live in unrighteousness, we live in our flesh, that's muted. It's not as, it doesn't stand out as much for us. Similarly, 1 Timothy chapter 4, it talks about us having a seared conscience. In other words, we're not sensitive to what's right and what's wrong. And so when you're living in a way that is incongruent to what how God's word says we should live, you don't feel that pressure that should bend you back into place because you're not sensitive to it anymore. You lived in a certain way, and like Romans 1 says, God gives you over to your depraved mind that's deprived of the truth.
But how much of that was, well, the conscience of men in the past used to be different than it is now, versus the standards for men back in that time were higher than they are now? I think that it's less to the individual and more to you look around and you're like, okay, I'm behind. I'm not even close to getting married. I don't have a job. I don't know what I want to do. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know where I'm going to live. I'm still asking my parents for money. That in the day was like you were on an island, and it was like everyone, you were left in the dust by your peers. Whereas in today's world, society's standards for manhood and what it means to be an independent human, or a human for that matter, the bar has dropped. And so if you are in your 30s living with your parents, or your late 20s and nowhere close to marriage and no idea what you're going to do with your life, and sulking around making a half-part job and playing video games on the weekends, well, you're not even outgrown by those around you because the societal bar has lowered so much. Which is why this podcast so often hits on creating storms for ourselves, like create obstacles to overcome, create accountability, create goals, like raise the standard. Because we've said it a million times, if your standards are what the world gives you, then it's totally okay to be mid-30s, don't know who you're going to do life with, what you're going to do with your life, don't know, really have purpose or meaning. Other people will take care of me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. I think that when you walk away from traditional values, I mean, there's no question boys have been under attack and men have been under attack, particularly a certain stripe of individual has been under attack in this country for a long time now. And what happens is coming home to roost. Now, all of a sudden, you have the result of telling young men and young women that masculinity is toxic, and you need to quit being so aggressive. You need to quit having so much ambition. You need to quit being so active and so violent. And so what you need to do is relax. You need to act more feminine so you're more attractive. And you see this everywhere, and the kids get it from every angle. And pretty soon, what you have is a bunch of people who are in their late 20s who are just have no financial ambition. It's mixed with affluence. It's the viewpoint of secularism, and it's undermining the role of a man in a biblical society.
Yeah,
Also,
go ahead.
Also, something that was preached back in the day in every arena was the value of a good woman, was the value of an awesome marriage, of having little kids that man, there's nothing better than watching your son do da da da. That's not even preached anymore. Like, you talk about values. Well, the term values or traditional value, it's literally, what do we value? Well, now you have a generation that is literally being told to value having a good time.
Yes.
Hey, stay young while you can.
So let me interrupt and say this. It's personal autonomy. That trumps everything. Like, it's my right. It's my right. It's my right. You hear it over and over and over. And personal autonomy starts to trump everything. And that's an error. But that's
Yeah.
people are trained today.
Yeah. And, we've talked about it, like your standards for yourself versus your standards for others. So what you have is this illustration where the guy is like, well, I'm totally fine working a half-part job, dreaming about a dojo, maybe moving in with her soon. But because you're not up to her standard, you're unattractive and you're about to get left. I
Well,
just think,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I think this is very interesting. Notice that these girls are not upset that the guy's not making a bunch of money. They're upset because they see no ambition.
Mhm.
They don't see him actively doing anything. You know what I'm saying? That it's so, it's one thing to say, I don't need a man or I don't have to get married and I'll go live in a career. But then all of a sudden, when you suddenly do start thinking about, man, I would like to have grandkids, the person you're picking is not somebody who lives with their parents and says he's going to start a dojo, but he doesn't have a job. Okay, I have a theory I want to run by you guys. I think there's a reason that it's 99% females that write in. And here's my theory. Women have a built-in mechanism concerning time. The biology of women lets them know all the time that there is such a thing as a future. And that's not something that a lot of men ordinarily have. They don't they don't have a way to incalculate the perils of not doing things in an urgent manner. But you guys know, everybody knows that women are on a biological time clock. And that's the essence of it. It's disconcerting for girls to be with guys who don't have plans, that only have daydreams. And it
Mhm.
doesn't work the other way around. Guys can be very happy with a girl who does financial ambition and just may only daydream. But she's a happy person, she's a kind person, and she treats him in a way that a man needs to be treated for him to be happy and fulfilled. But it doesn't work the other way around. So, just to clarify, none of these girls are bothered by the fact that the guy may not be making a lot of money. What they're concerned with is that in 20 years' time, he's going to be doing the same thing.
Mhm.
In other words, what concerns them is his complete obliviousness about the future. You with me? So he has daydreams and talks about we all want the same things, but he's not convincing because he only daydreams. So let me tell you the theory about the past, the future, and the present. Even a justice system cannot work if society does not see past and future as important as the present. Think about that. The justice system doesn't work if you don't have past precedences and if you can't predict what's going to happen in the future based on what you do today. The justice system falls apart if you forget that, forget that. You have to know the past and understand the implications of your actions on the future, right? The default condition for a person who is not enculturated in that is to only function in the present. And so here's my argument. Here's what's going on here. I think we've successfully raised a generation or more of men who are present focused. They don't have a commitment to the past. They don't know the past. And they don't have a commitment to the future. So, in short, a man has no ability to convert a daydream or a fantasy into action if he doesn't have a commitment to the past or a care for the future. And I think we've raised a generation who are stuck in bodily appetites which operate in the present. That's
I
that's my theory.
I totally agree. And I think that theory lines up picture perfect with one of the major symptoms of the breakdown of the family, which is you're not a forward looking people because you don't have to prepare the way for anyone. That's exactly what it is. When you have kids, you are planting a tree under which the shade of which you will not sit under, right? Like you have to be forward looking, forward planning, working towards something. But if you don't have this weight of paving the way for someone
Or the vision of a family.
or the vision of a family, trying to prepare, you know, you're no longer future oriented. And we end up in the exact situation that we're in right now, which is life is about hedonistic pleasure. That's what it is. That is the theme of people's lives now, is how much pleasure can I have and experience while I'm alive right now? Because they don't have to prioritize the future, because they don't have to live for anyone else, because they don't have a family.
It's interesting that you say that because I'm working on a sermon right now called The Problem of Pleasure. So That should be out in the next couple of weeks. So this right here, everything that we've just been talking about, that's why I say all the time, boys are built and women are grown, girls are grown. A man, in order to be successful, needs to live in the present and the future and the past. And he has to be taught and helped to see that the future is just as important as the present, if not more so. And he has to be taught that the past is more important than the present, if not more so. It's not natural. Hence, boys are built and girls are grown. This is just one area where you can see that that statement is true.
Another one of the reasons I think women are more future oriented naturally, and very much more so future oriented and driven and such nowadays, is that pure hedonistic pleasure generally comes with much more risk to women because they will have to carry a child to term. And so they have these natural guardrails that force them to think about the future.
That's right. And even if they are not necessarily pregnant via hedonism, as time goes by, they know their biological clock is running. And there are a lot of women who say, I don't want to get married, but I have a kid. Think about that. I don't want to get married, but I do want to have a child. Okay, so what this means is you're signing up to be a single parent, and that's very bad too. The statistics are all bent against that child that comes from a single parent home. It's just like you said a while ago, the breakdown of the family is the breakdown of what the family produces.
Okay, something that I do want to bring up that I kind of want to run by y'all is something that I've heard from a lot of adults, which is enjoy this while you're young. Well, don't rush into being an adult. Take your time. You don't have to make a decision now. And I think that there is a time and place for it. And it's interesting to hear that from adults who appear to be successful or have a good marriage. So, what would you say to those people? You know, on one hand, Dad, you are an adult who says, go. There's nothing better to do than to go. Master yourself and then start life. And that's traditional wisdom. Then you hear from someone that you love and respect and admire, take your time, be young, make bad decisions, go screw up. You have plenty of time to be an adult.
Well, I think, well, first of all, the traditional viewpoint is to get on with your life as an adult. Teenager is a relatively new term. There were no such thing as teenagers back when my grandparents were growing up. There was no term for teenagers. You just were a child or you were an adult. That's it. So, you know, if you read that book, Do Hard Things, they do actually discuss this, and they talk about ship captains at age 14 and 15. They talk about business owners that were respected in the community at 16, 17, and 18 years old because you were either a child or an adult, and you differentiated those two things by your actions. And so, as it pertains to young men, men are wired for purpose and action. There is no purpose other than a hedonistic pleasure, other than the pursuit of my autonomy and my rights if you're just going to quote unquote go have fun and make mistakes. I don't think there's really any long-term satisfaction in seeing how long you can stay in college and party. I don't think a man is satisfied in his soul and his mind in that situation. I think a man is at his best when he's protecting, providing, and presiding. When a man has something to live for, when a man has something to protect, when a man is providing for other people, and in charge of his day and maybe making an impact in his society, that's when a man is fulfilled. A man is fulfilled by accepting duty, honorable duty. And so what the alternative is, be dishonorable. See how long you can avoid responsibility. And I've watched long enough to see people who dodge responsibility, usually are not making a very good impact on society. Not only that, I like it when guys get married earlier because the most dangerous person to a society is single males between the age of 16 and 30. They're dangerous because, as Zeke alluded to a while ago, all they live for is the present. They don't have responsibility. You act differently when you have a wife and a child at home and you're gainfully employed building a family life. You act differently. You don't take as many risks. You don't put as many people in danger, including yourself. So those are my initial thoughts.
I agree. I just think that it's a common thing, like that I've heard from parents is, oh, take your time. Oh, enjoy these. But I don't know. I think it has a lot to do with the community you're raised in, the home you're raised in, and the people that are speaking into you. Because I remember people would always say, "Oh, these are the best years of your life," talking about high school and college. And I remember saying that around you, like, "Oh, these are the best years of my life." And you were like, "You're such an idiot. No, these are not even close to the best years of your life. Like, wait till you're married to your best friend and you're coming home and you're in your young 20s and 30s and y'all are laughing at trying to make dinner for the first time together. And then like imagine like the first time like you go out and like play catch with your son and then you finally get to drive to a little bitty dirt field and watch him step up and try to hit a ball off the tee. And you're going to tell me that going out to the bar with your 18, 19, 20-year-old buddies was the greatest time of your life? Like I think there's a misconception and maybe the greatness of family needs to be talked about more. Like maybe how great it is to be in love with someone that is under the same mission as you and to like raise little ones with your last name. Like maybe that's something that needs to be talked about more.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, and I think
Well,
also,
go ahead, Zeke.
I think also, um, that idea of live in the moment. You're young, be young. You don't have to worry about things like that. Make mistakes. I think that can come from two different places. So the positive place that it could come from would be when you are so caught up in the future that you're not appreciating where you are now, right? And I think there's the idea there's an idea that gratitude and anxiety can't exist at the same time because they're produced in the same place in your brain. And so if you're living in the future riddled with anxiety, the likelihood of you having your feet planted on the ground, being aware of every little thing about you, around you, and appreciating it and thanking God for it is low. I think that that's the positive place it can come from. I think there's also a negative place that can come from, and that would be someone who's probably not fulfilled in the work they're doing in their life. I mean, I genuinely cannot imagine my 40-year-old self telling my 19-year-old self, make mistakes. I just can't imagine that. I can't even imagine, because in my mind, my 40-year-old self will be living a very exciting, fulfilling, action-filled. Like I'll have an awesome family and a cool job, and I'll be living for God. You know, that's my mind. Life gets more and more exciting. It's like a snowball rolling down a hill. It's building in my mind. And I think I have that view because I've been taught to prioritize family and accomplishment and work. Right. But anyways, yeah, I think that advice can come from a good place or a bad place.
Yeah, I think another reason I said what I said is because I think men are meant for mission. I think men are wired for a mission. So gratifying your personal autonomy, that's not mission oriented. And by the way, I've told you guys to go make mistakes and have fun a lot. It's just you were 12 to 15.
Right.
Or we were on a field. That's not the same as, hey, go have fun and see how much you can screw up in life before you have to take on responsibility. I think taking responsibility is the essence of a man.
Totally agree.
All right, so back to the conundrum. Why do we have, tell me this, let me ask it another way. If men and women are the same, why are guys not complaining that the girl they're with does not have financial ambition?
Go ahead, Zeke.
Why does the guy not complain that the girl doesn't have financial ambition?
I mean, just say it. What do you think?
Financial ambition is not a key marker of feminine attractiveness. I don't have to look at a person that I'm thinking about dating and say, man, is she a nose on the grindstone, wake up early, go to bed late, live on the grind kind of girl? No, I couldn't give any less craps about that. It's not okay. How do I? Nah, dude, you take over because
I don't know. We're so, the way that the people in this conversation view life and what we value, why do men not care about a woman's financial ambition?
I can tell you. You want me to tell you where it comes from?
Yeah.
It comes, again, like I mentioned earlier, from Satan's perversion of feminine and masculine roles. Let me tell you exactly why that is. The Bible tells husbands to love their wives, and it tells wives to respect their husbands, right? Now, if a woman is sitting there craving respect, why doesn't he care about my financial ambition? It's not your role. I don't care. Like, I don't need to respect your amazing work ethic and desire. Right? Similarly, I don't need to be okay. Man, I want to just rant real bad.
Okay, I think that one of the reasons is that there's fundamental things that attract a man to a woman, and her financial ambition is not one of the top things. Now, I could argue that ambition in general is, I know that that's an attractive thing, like a girl that has a desire to go do this or have this sort of family, or hey, I'd like to ultimately do this. I know, or something that I'm attracted to, or I think that a lot of men are attracted to, is structure. I don't even know how to put it into words. The way I view it, it's less explainable and more, it's just how it is. It's just how we're hardwired.
Well, there's no question that's how it is. Or else you would have an equal amount of guys writing in and complaining, but they don't. To be honest with you, people on the far left in America and all over the world, I feel like that there's a lot of theories, but they just don't, it's like they're immune to facts. If you say, no, men and women are the same, or a man can do everything a woman can do everything a man can, and it's just social engineering, all that stuff. Well, you can have that theory if you want to, but it's like you're immune to facts because the facts say something different. And the fact is, women are not attracted to men who lack financial ambition, and it doesn't matter to a man if the lady he's attracted to has financial ambition or not. And there's a distinct reason why. Matter of fact, I can give you a pretty good example of this. Did you know in the 1950s and 60s, it was believed all over the country that to become an airline stewardess was a great way to find a husband? I want you to think about that. That was common knowledge. That was a great way to find a husband. So think about this. Do you know how many marriages happened and still happen because a young lady is a stewardess on an airplane and she walks up and in first class sits a guy who's obviously on a business trip and he starts to flirt with her. He sees she's single. She flirts back a little bit and he says, hey, I'm landing in Boston tonight. Are you going to be in town? It's so common for those two to go on a date. Now, let's reverse this. How many times do you think there is a male flight attendant who is on an airplane who goes up to first class and there's a woman in a business suit? How many times do you think she asks him if he has plans tonight? I can tell you, none. It does not happen. So maybe we have things like Cinderella and it can happen, but the opposite of Cinderella does not happen. There is no lady who is a business professional who is going to seek the company of a man, especially for a relationship going forward, who is so far financially below her. It doesn't happen. Yet for a guy, he couldn't care less what the stewardess makes. There is a fundamental difference between men and women. And so where does this lesson get us today? If you're a young man listening to this, the lesson is women are not attracted to men who are not actively seeking purpose in their life. If you want to attract women and if you want to find the right woman, go make something happen. Go serve other people. Go get involved in industry. Go build a future. That is the guy women are looking for. They are never going to be attracted to a guy who is not action oriented.
Right. And this comes from the exact same place of women being future oriented, because they don't see a partner as a source of pleasure or as a good time. They are thinking, is this someone I'm willing to hitch my wagon to and join them along this ride of life
And father
and
my children.
father my children? Men don't think like that. And so it's a fundamental difference in attraction. So one of the key markers that a woman wants in a future husband is direction. And if there isn't direction, she's not going to be very attracted to him. It's a prerequisite.
That's
For
right.
men, it's not a prerequisite. It's just not something that factors in.
That's right. So what's the solution? I think, Deuce, you hit on it earlier. I think the solution is getting back to our Judeo-Christian roots and making family the number one priority unit in the United States of America. And if you do that, I think you solve a multitude of problems.
Just take a close look at the lives of the people that prioritize and would say they prioritize having a good time compared to those that prioritize having an awesome family unit. I think that one of the biggest things that has changed over the past 50 to 100 years is what is prioritized as a society.
That's right. And I think that every society, for at least societies and civilizations, they have always known there is a challenge turning boys into men. If your society does a bad job at turning boys into men, you will not have a society very long. And if you do a great job of transitioning boys to men, your society has a ruggedness to it. It has an endurance to it. It has a lasting foundation to it. I think in essence, we're too rights focused today and not enough responsibility focused. And there's a great quote. It was Dwight D. Eisenhower who said, any nation that prioritizes its rights over its responsibilities will soon lose both.
Yeah, I heard in a book I read once, it said freedom doesn't mean a lack of responsibility. It means a choice between them.
Yeah.
And I think that someone might quote Ben Franklin and say that this quote is at odds with what you said. That's those who trade freedom for security will soon lose both. And they're saying, well, Benjamin Franklin is prioritizing freedom and Dwight Eisenhower is prioritizing your responsibility, but they're not at odds with each other.
That's right. Those are not
That's why
mutually
that's why
exclusive things.
John Adams said that the Constitution was designed for a moral and religious people, because it assumes that if you have freedom, you live in a responsible way, and you just get to choose where you tie that responsibility down to.
It's correct.
I think for people too that are trying to decide like what route to take, stay young, have a good time, put off responsibility as long as you can because one day it's inevitable. We talk about like why that is not fulfilling, and we look at the trend of our nation over the last 50 years. This is a question that I would ask myself. If a world epidemic broke out, or something, if we went into World War right now, what are the things that you would immediately think about and value? You have that answer. Now, is the life that you live day to day and the things that you do daily and what you're pursuing daily, do they match up with the things that you value or the first people you thought about or the future you desire?
Yeah,
A lot of people, and the reason I prompt you with that question is because, well, if you don't have a significant other, I can guarantee you that your mind still went immediately to people that you love. It didn't go to your next good time. It didn't go to a night out. It didn't go to a video game you enjoy. It didn't go to a relaxing day on the beach. And that reason that it didn't go to any of that is because humans are designed to value other humans. That's how we're built. And that is your nature, and you can fight it or push it off for as long as you want. Or you can say, no. I know, like at my core, what do I value the most? What's people? So right now you can start build a life for yourself that is for people, that is made up of people, the people that you marry, the little ones that you raise, the way that you impact the people around you. Everybody in their heart of hearts knows what is the most valuable. It's just, it almost gets distorted. For a minute, it's like the world can trick us momentarily into believing that we are the most important thing or that we value ourselves the most. But in reality, that's not the case. So what would y'all say to a young man who is trying to do the right thing, is trying to work hard, is trying to create a future and plan ahead, but he's in an environment with young America where that's not attractive to young women. They were raised to be kind of feminist. They were raised to be independent. And so as a result, he has to choose between, or feels like he has to choose between being structure and, forward thinking, or being more feminine and relatable so that he can attract girls.
Well, number one, being more feminine and relatable doesn't attract girls. And it might attract them for a few conversations, but they're not attracted to that in the long run. So even though they are told, be more feminine and more likable so you can be more agreeable and girls will like you, it's terrible advice. Feminine women like masculine men, bottom line. So I would say this. The first two things that come to mind are, number one, keep doing what you're doing. And if you find a girl that you're vetting and you align with her on all the major things in life, and she could be a life partner, she will be attracted to you because she can't help herself. Women are hardwired to be attracted to a masculine man who has a plan, who is busy doing the plan, knows where he's going. Women are attracted to that. Number two, you could be in a position as a male where that girl is not present. You could know 30 or 40 girls and they could not be in that right frame of mind. It's not who you want to marry anyway. So keep going and change your circles. Get to a girl who appreciates traditional masculinity. She will make the best wife and she will make the best mom. All right, we're going to wrap this one up. You can find this podcast at atomicmasculinity.com. Zeke, Deuce, thanks for being with us this week.
Yes, sir.